rearrange my office. She like hides it.
I love it. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Badass Clinician podcast. And today Chess and I are just gonna dive into some growing pain. I think this is a discussion that we need to talk about it and just be really open. Just because like running a business is like going to war without bullets, right? I mean, that's what everyone said. Unless you're in the trenches yourself, you have no idea. And just a reflection on this, like last year in March, I mean, we lost tons of money, like from like a collection perspective. I mean, upward like $60,000, right? But now we're able to bounce back and we're back profitable again. And this that's a lot of reflection I did within the past year. And I always thought about like, how do I even survive that, right? I mean, you went through it too. So, and having someone like Chechen to bounce idea off, I mean, it's huge. So I think this podcast, we just want to share what we went through. And I know whoever listening is probably going through some sort of variation of the same thing. And it's way better to know that you're not alone because this should happen to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty common. Like if you haven't experienced it in business, then just wait. Because it's coming.
It's so crazy because when I have people reach out to me, right, they're like, oh, things are going great, this and that. And it's almost like I can see what's the next iceberg is going to be because I went through it. I'm like, oh man, like I always tell people like, hey, just remember, like this is going to happen. Just be aware of that. I mean,
I think that's, not to cut you off, but I think that's where we're trying to help bring to light the importance of having frameworks and systems and processes in the way that you deal with adversity and deal with those challenges. Because if you see a problem, but you have a framework for how you can address that, how you can tackle that and turn that adversity into an opportunity, that gives you, yes, it's still stressful and it causes anxiety, but man, it's a whole lot better to know that you at least know how to address a challenge or an adversity or a problem because you have a system and process in place that you can follow to kind of step-by-step methodically assess the issue, identify, the steps that you need to take, and then go about correcting or, taking care of the problem that's in front of you.
Yeah, I think for me, it was not knowing what's wrong. And then by the time you realize it, you're like, oh my God, there's just bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And that's my analogy. It's always like, all right, show me where the dead bodies are. Right.
Yeah.
That's been my saying. Like, I hate saying it, but every time we let someone go, every time we fire a contractor, every time we move on towards anything, there's plenty of bodies. And you're just like, there's so much lost revenue when it comes to that. I like the first growing pain I encounter was when you get like, again, when you pay for ad agency and they're just giving you a lot of leads, but the leads are not qualified, right? We have Facebook ads we run in the past where the leads are coming in. It's just, they don't even speak English, bro. It's just like straight up like Spanish speaking. And again, listen, I'm over a year streak on Duolingo now. That doesn't mean I'm still qualified to nurture those leads. And I think the one thing that almost disheartening for me and made me jaded in running ads for a long time was, how do I know I'm going to get the right lead? How do I know I'm getting the right people in front of me? Just because you're spending all this time, your hard-earned money that you could easily put in your pocket as profit, but you reinvest in your business just because that's what we have to do as business owner. And then when you go ahead and you run ads, you spend $3K, and next thing you know, like out of those $3K, one might convert. You're not even breaking even. And the issue that I had in healthcare, right? When you follow guys like Alex Hormozi, there's no self-liquidating asset, as in like there's no, like there's no campaign where you can run a six-week challenge that you are in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
So that was my first growing pain, just because once you hire someone, right? Let's say you hire a PT. A PT is upwards of between 75K all the way to 90K, right? Depending on where you are, the experience that they have, what kind of rock star you want. And then from there, you're in the hook for that already. You're in the hook because no matter what, whether they treat, whether the patients show up or not, you still have to compensate your employees just because that's the agreement. So we're always in the hook. It's almost as if I'm going to a dinner, I'm paying for the food, but I don't know if the food's going to show up or not.
Yeah.
Right. So you're in that hook. So now when you when you have someone that's promising you like, oh yeah, go hire that person, and then we're gonna run ads for you, and we're gonna book their schedule, and then when the leads are not coming in and they're not hot, and most of the time, especially when it comes to Facebook, it's like they would say like, oh no, I didn't fill out that form, that wasn't me,
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
right? So
Yeah.
that's like the first hard lesson I learned. And what I realized at that point is that you have a hard time running ads, and you're getting a hard, like, the people who coming in, they're getting the wrong message, because you're handing off the most important thing, which is the marketing message of
Yep.
who you are as a company, who you are as a brand, to a third party who pretty much just do like a turnkey ad, and then they don't even know about your value. They don't know about
Yep.
who you are as a clinician, why you're passionate about this. That's like a huge missing component. And if you're running a free assessment ad, and then you're expecting people to go ahead and pay $3.49 afterwards, like that's like a huge ask. It's like you can't go from 0 to just 300,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work. So for me, like, I've lost, like, so much money by just doing that.
Yeah. And it's, this problem, it's kind of twofold in the sense that once you have to do something, like you need to get leads because you have expenses that you have to cover.
Hmm.
You've got bills you got to pay. You want to build a business that creates profit. So you have to do something. But when you do something and you get burned like that, it makes you jaded and it makes you hesitant then to continue doing what you need to do. And it creates all this uncertainty and all this stress and anxiety about, man, I'm spending this money, but I'm not at all confident that I'm going to get it back. Am I just going to, should I just take $3,000 and just light it on fire? Because unfortunately that's what happens a lot of times is, like you say, you get these agencies that come in and they deliver leads, but they don't account for who you are. They don't account for your services. They're attracting, the wrong leads. And so I think one thing that people have to consider is there's something called demand generation and demand fulfillment. Demand generation is Google. Someone goes to Google or even YouTube and they type in a search term because they want to get answers to a specific problem. So they're going to where they think they're going to get the solution, and usually that's the case. Google or YouTube are going to deliver some type of a solution. Whether it's good or not is another conversation we can have. But they're going there proactively looking for a solution. Facebook, on the other hand, people aren't going there looking for a solution. They're there to
Hmm.
check up on their kids, connect with their friends from high school or college, share pictures of their kids with their parents so grandma and grandpa can keep up with them. They're not going there to find a service.
Hmm.
And so it's important to understand that distinction when trying to decide where to invest your advertising dollars and realizing that the approach has to account for the mindset of the person that's there in that particular channel. And so those Facebook ads, like, you have to think about that when you're considering that. People aren't going there to find, ACL rehab. Now, maybe they're in the market for ACL rehab, but you have to change the conversation. You have to change the offer, change the campaign to account for that so that when someone does opt in, like, again, they're not opting in. You're not calling them and they're saying, well, I never fill out that form. You
Hmm.
got to make sure that the campaigns themselves are accounting for the mindset of the user, but then also, correctly portraying your brand, who you are, your message, the ways you can help, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And before, like, now, like, looking back, if I were to do it all over again, I would take that money, actually invest in brand awareness campaign, like actually optimizing the language that I use on the website,
Yes.
on the landing page, just because when you have a stranger coming to you, you need to constantly be giving an elevator pitch in some way and somehow. And
Yep.
to be honest, dude, people are doing this now more than ever, where before they go anywhere, they go on the social media page, right? Before I eat in any restaurant, guess what? I'm gonna go on that page restaurant, and I'm
Yep.
gonna look what the foods look like. Everyone
Yep.
does that every single time, right? And if you don't have a good online presence, and I've been a huge advocate, like, we had media as part of our team since, like, I started, because I know, like, I need to stand out in the marketplace, right?
Yes.
So I would almost prefer spending that 3K, 3 to 5K in, again, getting a good website that actually converts. Because people will tell you, like, you would need, this is crazy, right? I had a friend who owns a private practice, but in a medical space, right?
Hmm.
They would tell me they spend $60,000 on a website. I'm like,
60K?
60K, dude. 60K on the website. I'm like, that's two Honda Civics. That's my measure to everything. It's in Honda Civic. How many Honda Civic is gonna cost me? and and I'm like, I'm looking at his website. I'm like, dude, why? And he's like, well, they recommend me. That website is everything, and that's the first place that people drop. I was like, bro, people go on website on mobile. B, then they go on your Google to see your review. Then
Yes.
C, they then go on your social media to
Check out
see
your
who you
social
work with.
media. Yep. Yep.
Right? Social media now becoming a proof of success.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, there's nothing I could have done for him at that point. Like, we went to lunch. I just pray that the
Except
website works.
ask him to buy you dinner because, well, actually offer to take him to dinner because he probably can't afford it now that he spent so much on his website.
Yeah, I mean, I took him out for lunch, so I'm just like, dude, I feel so bad. But this happened every single day, right? And
Yeah.
if you look at our website, My Connect, it's directly towards the people that we want to work with and wants
Yeah.
to work with us, right? We have like the one thing we did that was a huge difference was like have people self-select who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Are you an athlete? Are you a
Yep.
parent of an athlete? Right? Are you like, again, are you an active adult or are you a professional athlete?
Yeah.
Having that selection, we already know where people are coming from, and each page have a different language that goes toward for those individual.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
If you're going to spend money on a website, you need to have strategy behind it, because otherwise, you're just lighting your money and then just set it into the wind. And if you're doing a landing page on Facebook, for example, and that landing page doesn't speak the language, and you're not writing your own copies, that's also going to be really, really tough to control, right? What I'm trying to do is that I spend a lot of time blaming other people of my failure rather than looking back and say, all right, what did I do wrong? And
Yeah.
as soon as I do that, I start taking ownership of my own problem. Then I can say, okay, because I did this wrong, now I know what I have to do to change it. It's not
Yeah.
me pointing at you. I'm pointing at myself, and I say, okay, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. And then from there, I was like, all right, let me just do this thing. Right.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's one thing, and you and I have talked a lot about this, is what we're trying to do is help empower clinicians to take back that control. Like when
Mhm,
you hire an agency to do certain things, like the website, like in a way, you are almost abdicating that responsibility. Like
mhm,
you're relying on someone else to do the work or to do the thing. Now, that's not to say that you have to. It's not to say you have to go out and build your own website or you have to write the copy. But at the end of the day, like you need to take accountability for the things that are out there, for your presence that's online, and you need to be the one that dictates what it says, how it sounds, how your brand is reflected, the actions that are taken, so that again, when you have questions, when things aren't working, you know how to fix them, or
mhm,
you can take responsibility for the results, but then also know how to implement the changes necessary to be able to deliver the results that you're looking for.
mhm. Yeah, and for self reflection, I was like essentially a part time CEO. Like, I didn't want to do all that thing, right? I was like,
Yeah,
oh, my time is worth so much. I'm like, and then at that point, I'm like, what was I doing with my time during that time? I
yeah,
was like, that was the best use of my time was to make sure that we actually converting people, we're getting the right people, right? And like, I'm so
and that goes
jaded.
back to that staircase we shared with the values, like things like that. Like, what is our messaging? What is our brand? What are we saying? What are like those are things that even at the highest levels, the people at the top of that staircase, those are the things that they're thinking about, because those are the things that then drive the bottom line value that you're going to deliver. That
Mhm,
reflects how the ads that you put out, the way that your staff answers the phone, the way that you send follow-up emails, the way that you nurture patients after they've left, the way that you develop those relationships, like taking that time, assuming that mantle of, being the one that decides the message, the brand, the voice, the style. Like those are things that no business owner, no successful business owner should abdicate, because
mhm,
at the end of the day, that's what drives the value of the business, is the brand, the messaging, the way you put yourself out there in public. Again and again, it's all reflected in your website, the ads that you run, the type of leads that you bring into the clinic, all those things that you do to drive your revenue. It's those types of things. That's the $10,000 an hour tasks that, as a clinic owner, you should be doing, because that's what ultimately drives the total value of the practice.
Yeah, and the reason why I think I ran away from that is because it seemed like mundane, boring work, and because English is my second language, I don't like writing, I don't like
Yeah.
speaking, right? And I just ran away from it rather running towards it. So that was my own demise, right?
Yep.
Being a part-time CEO, like as I
Yep.
would label myself back then. And I was reading the Elon Musk book, and that's totally changed my perspective because Elon is running multiple successful companies at the same time. But what's great about Elon is that he's always hands on.
Yeah.
He's hands on when it comes to the right people that he wants to serve and he wants to work with, right? I mean, I'm on to my second Tesla right now, right? And Tesla runs zero when it comes to marketing. But
Hmm.
what they're meticulous about is how they build a car and who's the car for,
Yes.
right? And that's the
Yep.
whole thing where Elon, he make his mission extremely important. We're like, hey, we want to be able to just go to Mars. That's why he
Yeah.
builds SpaceX. And the fact he's like, well, if we go to Mars, we need a vehicle that cannot run on gas. Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Well, sound like now we need to build something like Tesla,
Yeah.
right? And then the people that I know that are Tesla owners, they're not people who are, earth saving kind of people, to be honest, right? I mean, listen, I love
They're
being
not
here. I
tree
want to be here as
huggers.
long as possible. Yeah, exactly, right? They're not like, so Tesla drivers are not Prius drivers, and the marketing
Yes.
message and the brand and the website is not for people who would buy a Prius, because the people who would buy a Prius, let's say it in, like, let's just be honest, like, they absolutely hate Elon.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? Where,
Yeah.
again, people who are inspired by Elon, his message and his brand, like, will gear towards the Tesla. And
Yep.
that's the whole point. If you have a guy who's the richest man in the world still working the day to day and he find joining
Hmm.
that, like, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Right? And
Exactly.
another
And I heard, I don't remember who, maybe it was you that sent me. I saw a YouTube clip, but it was talking about Steve Jobs
Mhm.
and how when he came back to Apple, he focused meticulously on like just the style, the design, like all the little details that make Apple what it. I guess it's still there. They've lost a little bit of that focus, but what it was at their heyday, when a new iPhone would come out and people would just line up out the door, or when the iPod first came out. I mean, it was just innovation, and It was Steve Jobs that drove that, because of what he could see for Apple and how they could have an impact, for their customers. But the specific example was talking about the laptops, and how um, they used to have like square corners. And so when they were designing the screens, or the edges of the laptop, the reason they did that was because the motherboards were built on these square like sheets
Mhm.
where they would put all the components on. Well, he said, if you look around in nature, there's curves everywhere. So why are we not incorporating that into the design of our laptops? And so
Mhm.
that's where they started getting like the curved design on their MacBooks and all of their iMacs and whatnot. But it was that attention to detail that Steve Jobs, who's at the very top, who you would think is concerned about all these other things, but he was focused on that specific detail, because that reflected the Apple brand, and that's what's helped kind of create this mass movement, so to speak. These fanboys, for iPhones and iMacs and all those different things, and so it's that same level of attention to those specific details that really matter, that help drive the brand, that are going to have a huge impact overall.
Yeah, I think all in all, it's just like summing up with what we're talking about is that if you have bad leads, then I mean you have bad marketing message, right? And the marketing message doesn't click or does not get in front of the right people that you want to
Yep.
work with or have relationship with. And therefore, me just talking back to myself as being a part-time CEO is like I'm not invested in putting my message out there or refine my message and actually
Yes.
honestly being obsessed with the people who I want to work with.
Yeah.
I think right now we probably spend more time talking about what's our patient look like, what are they going through, like how can we help them, what kind of message they need to see. I spend more time on writing email, writing copies more than anything because that's my way to communicate when it comes to getting in front of the right people. Right. Another
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. And it all goes back to those leads. Like if
Yeah.
if you can focus on that and really put out content, material, your website, your social media, your Google profile, the emails that you send, like that has a massive impact when it comes to just generating leads.
Mhm.
Like even though, even though that's the beginning of the process, it all starts with that overall messaging, that overall branding that then drives the actions that you take to deliver those results. And so not losing sight of that, I think, is critical as you're looking to move up that staircase and grow your clinic and have success.
Yeah, and I think that's again that's my first growing pain, right? The growing pain is that we hire people, and people are coming in. We're payroll's getting bigger. We're not getting the right leads, and therefore, now we're in the negative. That's
Yep.
the biggest lesson there, and like. And as a business owner, like it is your job to control the message. It's your job to get the people coming in. Like you should. The one thing I wouldn't hand off ever as far as in when it comes to anything, it's all about marketing and message and training my team, coaching my
Yeah.
team, like
Yes.
developing them, right? Those are a huge thing. That's a separate topic. To bring it into another company I've been obsessed with and learning a lot from it is Costco. Dude,
Mm-hmm.
like I listen to like a 4-hour podcast on Costco while I'm working out. And the way they come up with is they were able to identify who they want to work with, right? And who they want to work are people who wants to pay for membership because they want that saving.
Yep.
So when's the last time you saw Costco advertising?
I mean, I'm a member, so I get their monthly mailer, but outside of that, not very often.
They don't run ads.
Yeah.
They don't run anything.
Yeah. It's because at this point they don't need to.
Exactly. Even in the beginning of Costco, dude, is the guy started and they're like, hey, we want to make sure that we get low prices for people that's available,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we want people to, again, pay for membership. And their main
Yep.
thing was to take care of the customer.
Yep.
And Costco is so cool because they have a certain profit margin they need to make, which is
Mm-hmm.
around 15 to 18%. And they don't want to make any higher than that,
Yeah.
right? Because that's part of their, you know, core value.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a Costco member, you know that Costco is negotiating for the lowest price possible. So, for example, if you're a vendor and you're selling at Costco and you say, by the way, um, price has gone up 20%, I need to charge more. And therefore, you need to charge your customer more. Costco would then say, no, hold on. Let me go do some market research of why the price is going up 20%. And then if they find out that that vendor is lying to them, they say, no, we're not going to do that. You don't have substantial evidence of why that price is going up. I was like, if you want to work with us and you want to be in our warehouse, we have to keep it at this because we want to protect our customer,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And if they say no, you know what they do? Costco then will produce that product themselves. That's how they started off with Kirkland brand.
The Kirkland. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
like again, I love this brand of chicken nuggets that I get at Costco. And and recently, the past 3 months, that brand is no longer in Costco. And I just assumed like, oh, they're probably trying to charge higher margin that Costco doesn't like.
Uh,
And then Costco's like, you know what? We're just gonna do this ourselves. We're gonna create our own Kirkland brand of
so in
the
a couple
exact
months, you'll
same
be able to
nugget.
buy the Kirkland brand.
No, it's already out. The Kirkland brand's already out.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Yeah. Right. So not only they have the right marketing message in front of the right people, they also do their best to take care of their customer.
yeah.
Right. And without getting too greedy and without straying away from the core value.
Yep.
Right? One of our core values here is do the right thing, not the easy thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's part of it. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, it's great to have like a 20% margin because we need to grow, but we can't do that by sacrificing our ethical value. Because
Yeah.
everything's again in healthcare is all about ethics,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And if you're looking at those again, you're looking at Steve Jobs, you're looking at Elon, you're looking at Costco, like these are brand that has synonymally dominate the marketplace because they are literally continuously asking the question, the people who we want to work with, what do they need to see from us? How do we
Mm-hmm.
build trust? How do we convince them this is the right place for them?
Yep.
And to climb up that staircase that we shown before, from being a clinic manager all the way to being a clinic CEO, all the way to being like a well builder, like you're gonna need to be obsessed about that all the time.
Yeah.
And again, where I was as fall coming back again was like I was not taking that ownership, and I foolishly think that people who in marketing space is gonna run better ads than me, and it's gonna know my customer than me. When in reality, it's not true because they don't live the experience. People those marketers don't see patient cry on their table because they can't play their sport.
Yeah.
Right? We as PT, we get that. We get to be able to like take someone from point A to point B and get them to be able to run, walk, and all of that stuff again. That means so much more to us. So I'd say, for the people who are listening, like don't hand that off, because that is your compound effect. That's how you get to change lives and help people.
Yeah, and I think too, once you're clear on that, it's a whole lot easier to then manage those outside vendors or outside agencies that you work with, because you're very clear on who you are, who your ideal patient is, the things that you need to do, the things that you want to do to convey that message. And so, the more clear you are on that, the easier it is to find the right resources and solutions to accomplish what it is you're trying to accomplish. No matter what it is. And I would say also, like, it's never too early to start thinking about these things.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the sooner you start thinking about these things, the sooner that you get clear on that and get control of your process, the easier it is to manage that growth. So we were talking, when we started off talking about challenges and things that you encounter as a business owner, when you have clarity on who you are, who you're trying to serve, and you have control over that process of getting that message out, man, that growth is almost predictable, because you control every aspect of it. You know what questions to ask, you know what things to say, you know who to hold accountable to accomplishing those things. And so even though you may not be the one, doing the work, so to speak, you at least have oversight over that process, and you're able to then gauge how well you're doing those things according to your brand and your values and the things that you're trying to do, the community that you're trying to serve and the goals that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and on the flip side, right, we touch on lead as growing pain, wrong lead. We touch on wrong marketing message, and then next one, growing pain with wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So like that's a huge thing, because wrong people in your company is like a tumor, man. You cannot scale a tumor. I
It's
made
horrible.
my fair share of bad hires. I mean, like, bad, right? And where we have to part way with peoples and all of that stuff. And wrong fit employees actually not only just cost you dollars on the payroll, but actually cost you relationships. And to me, those relationships I cannot get back. Right.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to do so, from like wrong front desk, like the way they're answering the phone, like wrong marketing message, and like even like wrong PTs when it comes to fulfillment. I think if you're not clear when it comes to your message, your mission, and the people you're trying to help, and then you hire someone and they don't know that, like, that's going to cost you so much money. Like I talk to friends who, lose PT left and right just because of that. Right.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, and I felt, as part of this trap where in the beginning, you're so small, you're almost like begging people to work for you. And it's kind of weird because you're paying them, but then you're kind of begging them, and you're at their mercy in some ways.
Yeah.
And to the point, because you weren't so sure about yourself, you don't have enough credibility, you don't have enough track record to see like, hey, this is why, like you need to be working here, etc. Like now, where I'm at now is like we only want people to wants to help us expand our impact, because he is the people who wants to help. And that has to come with being so clear, crystal clear, of who envision the people that you want to help. And are the people on your team see the same people that they want to help, or do they have something that is more self-serving and they want to use you as a springboard? Right. Like this morning, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he just lost. He has a clinic and also a fitness business. Right. He was saying like he just fired one of his trainers, and I say, why? He's like, well, he was doing stuff on the side and he's not doing all these things. I was like, bro, like it's so hard to hire someone with huge ego and try to tame that ego, because it's really hard to tame someone. The ego's down is a lot better to build someone up.
Yeah, and I would say too, I think I just lost my train of thought. I think as business owners, I think it's easier, or when you're looking for those people, you want to find people that buy into your mission first.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're not the most skilled at this point, but if they have the right attitude and they have the right mindset and they buy into your mission, Like you can train those skills. You can train those things that you need to train, but it's really hard to it's really hard to change someone's attitude or their buy-in to your mission if they don't have that initially.
Mhm.
And so getting clear on that again up front and knowing exactly who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, the impact that you're trying to have, saves you the time, it saves you the money. And the other thing I would add is emotional energy. Like you talk about the expenses, like dollar wise, but there's a huge cost emotionally and just energy wise when it comes to dealing with bad employees or bad fits. Because not only are they impacting your business in terms of the way they're communicating and turning people off or turning people away, but you as a business owner, and I know I've been through this, I know you've been through this, just the mental gymnastics that you go through trying to justify keeping that person on board and putting up with the few good things in spite of all the bad things. To me, that's almost more costly than the money lost, because there's still money there, but just that energy and that time that you lose just thinking about it and stressing about it and just the anxiety that it causes. I mean, that is what can make running a business really hard, is when you don't
Mhm.
have the right people.
Yeah, and I think what drive me absolutely crazy is complacency. Like I obviously do everything I can, working out, like try to build my health, my relationship, my knowledge.
Hmm.
And when I see people is just kind of hanging back, um, it drives me nuts. And then
Yeah,
from there, like, and then when I try to push people forward and they're not looking to grow with the company, that's like a huge red flag for me, right? And in
yeah,
the past, I would like, you know, I hate saying this, but sometimes you end up dimming your own light to make people feel better about themselves.
yeah.
And when you do that, you're not being true to yourself, especially if you're mission driven, right? And
Yep.
I know, again, I spoke to countless of business owner who just like, hey man, I feel like I need to stop being myself for my team to feel okay. I was like, what does that mean? It's almost, I'm like, dude, like if you watch The Last Stand, you watch anything Jordan, Kobe related, even Brady. I was like, they don't do that. They
Yeah.
go in there and they demand. The sickest thing was over the past summer, we had a couple guys from the Buccaneers that came in, right? We were working with them. I asked the one O-line guy that actually worked with Brady directly on the Super Bowl season. I say, tell me exactly what it was like before and after. What's the Brady effect? He was like, dude, he's like, the environment overnight changes. It's like the air was denser as soon
Hmm.
as you walked in. Their standard went up almost immediately,
I'm sure.
and the bullshit just gone,
Yep.
like gone. And I was like, all right, well, what about in the locker room? Like, how many people left? And he's like, people self-select out
Yeah.
because they knew whatever hanging back that they're gonna do is gone. There's no
Yes.
handing back. There's no free lunch anymore, right? So as soon as Brady came in, he raised the standard up by 5 notches,
Hmm.
right? That's just him entering the building. Throughout the practice, throughout the season, as it get closer to playoff, it kept going up, no
Hmm.
matter what.
Yep.
And the best thing about it is that he wouldn't demand of other people what he wouldn't demand for himself.
Hmm.
So he's
Yep.
not there to dim his own light. Anything he say, he's gonna shine brighter, and he want people to shine with him.
Well, he's going to be the one leading from the front.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So now I'm in that mindset where like, all right, listen, if you're not cut out to be here, then you're not meant to be. There's a saying when I met with my team was like, we want to keep raising standard where people who used to work here, if they were applied, they can't make it in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
They wouldn't be a
standard's
good
too
fit.
high.
Yep.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
standard's too high and people don't want that.
Yep.
Right. I had to spiel on my personal thought, and people might hate me for this, is when I see people celebrate too early by like, let's say, doing like leisure stuff, right? Like let's say golf, right? I shit on golf because I'm not good at it. And it gets people going crazy because if people come to me and say, hey, I don't have time to work out, I don't have time to eat healthy, I don't have time to spend with my family, etc. I was like, but you have time to golf. And they're like, yeah, that's my outlet. I was like, that you're spending 4 hours on the course and you get zero, like minimal return,
Yep.
minimal. And I'd say from a
Yep.
fitness standpoint, and I was like, for that 4 hours, dude, you can probably read books, write article,
Hmm.
get a good workout in, and then go hang
Yep.
out with your wife and your kids, right?
Yep.
I was like, that's
Yep.
tremendous return on investment as far as compounding effect go. Now, when I see people who just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go golf, like to me is complacency. And I obviously I made a statement that people were like, what? How do you say that? I was like, listen, if there's there's the decline in masculinity associated with the increased amount of people playing golf.
I can't wait to see the comment section on that one.
People don't like that one. But
No,
the
but
way
it's true.
I
Yeah,
look
it's
at it
absolutely
as
true.
an investment, right? Like dude, like you have 4 hours. If you and I have 4 hours, right? If I choose to go play golf, great. Like I mean, that's a good outlet. But for me, I'm like that 4 hours can do so many things. 4 hours is a
Yeah.
lot of time.
Yeah, and I, in that regard, I think again, it goes back to clarity. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Who do you want to be? And if you're not, if that is not moving you any closer to your goals, like what's your reasoning?
Yeah.
And so I think it's getting clear, and then it's having the discipline to do the right thing, not the easy thing. Going
Hmm.
back to one of your core values is do the right thing, not necessarily the easy thing. And that applies across the board to anything we're talking about.
Yeah. And again, my one outlet, I'll say this, people can make fun of me for this too. Is like I love watching anime. That's my jam. Right. I've been watching since like when I was little. So like if I have like an hour and that hour I'm gonna do zone 2 cardio, guess what? I'm gonna watch anime.
All right, what's your go-to anime?
Jujutsu Kaisen. That's like the one that just finished. I've been watching Mob Psycho, One Punch Man, Demon Slayer. I mean, dude, I'm like I nerd out on this thing. Like
Yeah, because you lost me on the first one.
oh
The
yeah,
the most anime for me would be watching the Avatar,
okay.
that
I mean,
that
like
cartoon
like
series.
yeah, I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I got into working out. Like you see Goku going Super Saiyan, you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
I got to do that. So, anyways, but I still do it while I'm doing my zone 2 cardio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So like
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
my main thing. That's my justification of doing this thing. All to sum it up is that if you're not, again, the growing pain is that dimming your own standard to accommodate the people who you have in your circle, because the business is a circle. And if you're doing that, you're just playing for fifth place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and nobody wants to play for fifth place. And
Yep.
as soon as we turn that around this year, and I wrote it down on my my annual planning where I have it with me every single day. The first thing that I say in here is to create a winning culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, people don't mind doing hard stuff as long as they know they get to win. Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to read it exactly what I wrote down. Yeah. Right. Like create a culture of winning. And like the first thing was like, yeah, question every procedure that we have, right? Because it's need to be questioned,
Yep.
right? Like, can we do things better? Like, question it and then delete the things that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Simplify everything, right? And I got that from Elon, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, like, get feedback through testing, and tracking and communication,
Yep.
communicating, right? And that's the biggest thing. I think when it comes to any sport, and you see when people are winning championship and not just championship, a one off, and they build like a dynasty, it's because of that. The my One of the best book was Relentless by Tim Grover, right? He's talking about
Mm-hmm.
Kobe.
Yep.
Kobe winning championship. Guess what? Next day, back in the gym,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? This is always a job not finished mentality. And again, this is why running a business is hard, and you always constantly gotta level yourself up. And what's cool is that what's cool and what's not cool is that you can have a great quarter, and then guess what? Next quarter you have to do it all over again,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you can
It,
have a
it,
great year, same thing.
yep. But and I think again, just kind of summarize, those that have success have taken the responsibility to assume control over those things that they can control.
Hmm.
And in business, as a business owner, there are a lot of things that you can control. Like, again, you're not the one doing all of the work, but you can control the quality of the output. You can control the type of employees that you have. You can control the messages that are put out there. And that really is your responsibility as a business owner, is to identify those things that you can control, assume as much control over those things as you can, and then put processes, people, systems in place to help carry that work out so that you can push that mission forward and continue to dictate and determine what that direction, what that message, what that vision for the company is.
Yeah. I think just to kind of wrap it up, it's like going back to the growing pain. It's like, you know, having bad leads lead to bad, it's from bad marketing message, right? Having bad marketing messages mean having bad clarity of what you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do, and not
Yep.
having bad clarity will lead to having bad employees. Having bad
Yep.
employee will lead to financial stress and loss in profit, loss in
Mm-hmm.
revenue, and loss in relationship, which is the biggest thing that people don't account for.
Yep.
And you know, like that's why we do this, right? The whole point is like, I think you and I talk off camera was like, yeah, we go into the granular and like talk about like how to market, how to, but I think at the end of the day, we got to talk about like bigger focus, bigger plan of why we're doing this in the first place. And I think that what we're trying to do is you and I try to have more conversation like this with other business owners to help them like level up and scale up, right? By in terms of their thinking and their process, right? Because we do
Yep.
both. And essentially we're trying to build something where it's more of a strategic relationship where people are
Mm-hmm.
okay having this kind of conversation, because that's what running a business is. You will have to grow yourself first before
Yep.
you can grow your team. If you can't lead your team, they're not going to follow you. They're not going to be able to level up, right? Having that like, you know, championship mindset, having that dynasty mindset.
Yep.
So, you know, if again, like there's so many other people out there that would just do a done for you kind of stuff, but you know, but again, when it's done for you, you don't get to control anything. And
Yeah.
if you don't get to control anything, guess what? You're a part-time CEO, and you're just a
Yeah.
clinic manager that is beholden to whatever agency you work for, right? And
Yeah.
and and
I
you're not
think,
going to have an outcome you want.
yeah, I think the biggest thing, and you said it there, is the mindset. Like, what we're trying to do is help people, help clinicians that really want to grow a thriving, successful clinic have the right mindset, have the mindset of a CEO, um, and look at it from that perspective of, you know, being the one that dictates the vision, that dictates the impact that you want to have, and then sets the criteria for all the factors that go into making that happen. You know, it's having that big picture view, and then knowing how to drill down into the details to carry that out and make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, like us putting ourselves out there, we want to just connect with more people. I think you know, if you guys enjoy this, like please reach out. Like I mean, like hell, like book a call. Let's just hop on a call and then like see how we can help. I think that's probably the, and we just want to connect with more people, right? Because you and I
Yeah.
just love, we can talk about this all day.
Yep.
So I think like, you know, that's a good sum up of growing pain. I think next week we can dive into more some of the stuff, because now we're heading into, at the time we're recording, we're heading into Q2, right? So like you need some
We're
planning,
into
some focus.
Q2.
Yeah, we're in
Yeah.
Q2. Yeah, you're right. So that's something that we need to constantly have be thinking about like what we're gonna do this quarter, how we're gonna beat last quarter, and it's not easy, man, because you're and it gets tiresome. That's the whole point. So guys, if you
Yeah.
listen to
I
this,
think too, just real quick,
mhm,
it's not just Q2, because really what we're talking about is, yes, Q2 this year, but really it's like long term thinking,
mhm.
like having that long term strategic vision for what you're trying to accomplish, but making sure that we're setting the foundation today that's going to have an impact today, but also allow you to continue having an impact many years down the road.
Exactly. So, anyways, we're gonna sign off. That's it for the podcast for this week. Yeah, we'll catch you guys next week. If you again, if you want to get connected, just hit us up on you know, book a call link, and then Chess and I will hop on a call and see how we can help you. Chesson, thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, man, I always enjoy it.